Heavenly Father, I just thank you so much for just these few minutes that we can spend together today with these great leaders. We've all had different days, and we've heard about some of that already. Some days have been a little bit more challenging already, but God, I thank you that you hold us in the palm of your hand, that you understand the challenges that we're facing, and that we never walk alone. We thank you for being with us, and we thank you for our colleagues in ministry here. Lord, we just commit this time to you. We just pray that you would bless it and make it special. And I just pray that by the time we're done today, we will have all heard something that will encourage us, challenge us, and help us to identify some next steps that will help our ministries be even more effective for the kingdom. So thank you so much for this time together, and thank you for being with us. And we pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Well, I am glad to have each and every one of you here today. I'm imagining as I looked through the list of all the different ministries. And Jonathan, thank you for praying for these incredible leaders, the ministries each of them represent. It is a privilege to be able to be together and to be able to see God use our work in our hands to move his kingdom. So today, when we talk about this topic of calls to action, we are talking about just that action, leading people toward action. So let's go for it. Let's talk about some things we can do that has to do with action. So what is a call to action? So that's actually a term. It's not just 3 words, but the idea of a call to action is that it's anything that you would use in your communication, and lots of different ways you can do it, which we'll talk about in a moment, that moves the person that's reading, the person that is visiting your site, the person that is engaging with you towards some kind of a response, some way for them as a reader to say, what can I do to be a part of the solution of what your ministry is already engaged in? So whether that means that it's reading a blog, it's clicking on a link, it's getting more information, anything that enables them to move and to take action, that's what we're talking about when we say a call to action. It's doing something now. So as we move toward using a call to action, you want to think about every time we communicate with those people that are engaging with us. They could be champions, they could be donors, they could be volunteers. Every communication should include a clear, compelling call to action. And if you're going to do all the work as a ministry to communicate what you're doing, to share the mission, to message really carefully and clearly what you're about so that people can participate with you, you really want them to know what you want them to do. And that's one of the things that we have received as feedback from nonprofits is, I see all this great work out there, I'm excited about it, but sometimes I don't know what I can do. So a call to action helps those people now figure out, what is it that you want me to do, or what are my options of what I can do? And we want to make it crystal clear. Now, in this one example, just sitting here, you just see big bold letters, today, and they're giving you some facts about children. And they're saying, but together we can change that. So this kind of creates that excitement and energy. And so what is it that you want them to do? Even at the bottom there, this email goes on, but it says double my life-saving impact. And that's a clickable link right there to find out I can do something. It's not just give now, it's not just donate, but it says double my life-saving gift. So every communication doesn't have to be about money, but every communication should include an opportunity for someone to either go to your website, to learn more, to explore options, to learn something new, or to give or share for your ministry. So all forms of communication need to have a clear way that people can respond to join you. So let's look at some of those examples. Well, here's some information. When your call to action buttons, most common way of people doing it is a button. Your call to action button, when they work, more people click on them. And when I say work, we're going to look at what that actually means. more people click on them, that means that more people actually go where you want them to go, because you direct them when they go there. And when people go to the place where you want them to go, then they have opportunities to take action. So calls to action really is a way to guide those people that you are engaging with, to help them know where you want them to go, to help them to go on a journey. And as they continue to be interested, that journey can continue. So unfortunately, on the flip side, a poorly crafted call to action, or a call to action that is unclear, it's even missing, that means that all the work that you do to communicate, all the work that you do to share the vision and the excitement of what God is doing through your ministry could actually become useless. Like, it leads to nowhere. And so we hear that is a lot of people that abandon their intention to go on your website to engage with you. They actually abandon that and leave. And it's usually because they're not clear what they can do, how they can be a part of it, what that action is. So all that work might lead to nothing. Worst yet, it could actually frustrate people and turn people away and give them a bad taste. So that's one of the reasons why we look at this simple way of talking about a call to action. So here's just some specific types. I said buttons, that's the most common. It looks like those things on the left side. You know, we've seen them: share now, give now, learn more, all of that. Those are places where people, when they're interested, they click, and it usually leads to something. We also see hyperlink text. So it usually shows up in blue with an underline, and it takes you somewhere. Now, even a plain text can be a call to an action that tells you what you want them to do next. It doesn't have to go somewhere, but it says, we want you to join our team. That's a form of a call to an action. However, you want that also to lead to someplace where they can go and do something. But plain text is another form of being a call to action, when it's clearly saying what the person that's reading or engaging with you, what you are suggesting that they can do. Banners, that's on your website. So when that banner comes across the top, a lot of times those will give information of what the person that's coming on your website can do. What is the call to take action? So those are another way to share with people how to engage with your organization. Forms are fill out this form, give us this feedback. Pop-ups, we see that pop-ups are a growing thing, that they interrupt the reader. So if you go onto a giving page, that could pop up if you try to leave and say, would you like to give a gift? To just remind people. So they're telling people what they could do. Would you like to sign up and subscribe to our newsletter? So there's different ways that pop-ups can be used to engage people and say, would you take this action? And the last one is slide-ins, which is something that just might slide into view. A banner is a form of a slide-in, but there's a lot of different things that might slide into the view of somebody, and that's typically on your website as well. So we're going to now jump and look into 4 tips that will really help you create calls to action that will inspire engagement, will lead to people following the direction that you want them to go. And we're going to look at lots of examples as well. So tip number 1, keep it simple. Simplicity is the key for calls to action. You don't want to make it confusing, because then no one knows what you want them to do. You want it to be easy to click and go straight to the desired action. As few words as possible, 1 to 6. Now, there is an exception to that, because, you know, when you're using text to do that, to give someone a direction to say, here's what you can do. Those are the exceptions, but buttons should be short and sweet. Texts that are hot linked, and that, you know, those should be compelling invitations to take action. And you want to use action verbs. And, you know, we see action verbs that's donate now. Those are common, but the compelling, inspiring action verbs that move people and that capture their attention, this is where those people that are creative love to bring in new kinds of action verbs. And we're going to look at lots of those today. But being creative, you want to still make sure that you're clear. That clarity is not lost in creativity, because sometimes you can get an action verb and a person isn't clear about whether you want them to participate or to donate or to do something else. So keeping all of these things connected together creativity with clear action, short, simple statements, and make sure that they stand out. The focus of your call to action is really to be able to make sure that people know what they can do regarding the thing that you're talking about. So if you're talking about an upcoming activity that's going to serve more people, what can they do? If you want them to volunteer, clearly making sure that they know how to do that, and that when they respond to that call to action, it actually does and takes them to a place that they can follow that very thing that you were talking about. Interestingly, if you do a communication, sometimes we like to, in a communication, put 5 or 6 different calls to action. But the reality is they're seeing that in statistics, if your call to action only has one call to action, and that doesn't mean there's only one button, but there's only one message, there's only one focal of that communication, and you have different ways that can respond. You might have a hot linked few words that are in a sentence. You might have a button that stands out. You might have a picture that has a hot link to it, but they're all really one thing you're talking about. Then emails with that single call to action, clicks, responses are increased by 371%. That tells us something about communication. When we communicate with lots of messages, people get lost. When we communicate with one clear message and we're telling them what they can do, people then go, okay, I know what I can do, and more people respond. So encouraging people through this process, if you encourage someone to go to your website to find more, you can have another call to action that takes them the next step and then the next step, rather than having 4 calls to action in your single communication. So keep it simple, keep it visible so that people know exactly what you want to do. So here's some examples. Just you can see there's everything from subscribe out there to I'm all in, let's make a reservation. I love this one that says discover more. And like I said, all calls to action don't need to be about giving in that moment. But if you go to that discover more, I checked it out, they're going to tell you, and that's particularly about the cancer diagnosis. They're telling a story that's a very compelling story. And anyone that understands the plight of walking through cancer, they read that story and they want to understand what this organization is doing. And once you read through that story, the next call to action is to be able to be a part of the solution. So you can still carry people through that process, but that email call to action, discover more, share your thoughts. So here's another call to action that says, we want to hear from you. And what we are hearing in the world of fundraising is you want to have a strong relationship that has two-way communication. So sometimes your communication is, we want to hear from you. There's no other call to action. We're not going to have money every time, but there's how are we building this relationship to connect with people? So those are a bunch of different examples of what it could look like to keep it simple. Second point tip, capture people's attention. Now, but you'd be surprised. Capturing people's attention could be as simple as having the right colors. So if your email is all black and white and you have your logo at the top, and your logo has this really nice orange color in it, then having a nice orange clicking button in the middle when everything else is black and white captures attention. They know where to go. Their eyes are drawn to it. So color, placement, where is that? People, when they get inspired by our messages and by what things we're doing, they're trying to figure out, where do I go? And even today, I was on an email and I was very interested in what this email was all about. And I was trying to figure out how, in this case, it was about a conference in Denver that I can't go to, but on their email, they talked about, you can see this live. And so I went to their button to click on it, and it took me to this long sheet, and I couldn't figure out anything that had to do with me being able to watch it live. So trying to find where these buttons are, I had to read that email probably 4 times. I was really persistent because I wanted to find it out, but I never got to what I really wanted because it was all about attending live. So capture their attention by color, placement, even font size. We have a growing population. We're living longer. People like myself need glasses, need big font. And so think about your font size. Is it easy to see? Test the button size. Is it something that is the right size, and do people click on it? So a lot of the calls to action can be tested because we have communication systems that show us where people click. So you can test the font size, test it to see what seems to work with your people. And then this other one, I wanted to make sure to capture this idea, but use images along with related words. So here's an example of an image of a free giveaway. And yeah, my coloring, and I didn't make it huge here, but in the email, it was pretty good size, and they're giving something away. And so they put the picture there. And what they did is they made sure that the picture was a hot link, as well as their button that says download now. So no matter where someone pushes, because, I've talked to my mom 3 times in the last week, and she's like, I can't figure out what to do. And I'm like, just push things, see what happens. And so if we make our hot links more accessible, rather than people only be able to get it in one way, then you're gonna capture their attention, image, let that image also be a hot link. So that's number 2, looking at how do you capture attention. So readability does matter, when we talk about size, but not only size, it's giving the eyes a break all day long. We're on our computers, we're on our phones. We need white space. We need space in between. And, sure, and if you're going to write a letter, you don't want big gaps in your letter. But when you're reading an email, big gaps create a break for the mind. And it helps your brain go and look for different things that you want to find. So you can emphasize things using bold or underlined or highlighting. So think about when you send an email out, is it easy to read, and do people know where you want them to look to be able to find the call to action next step that they can take? And the reality is looking 2 to 3 colors is ideal. When you start bringing a whole bunch of colors into, again, the brain goes, whoa, there's a lot to look at. It gets overwhelmed. Most of our brains are pretty much well taxed anyway. So the simpler you make it, 2 to 3 colors that are really well placed, makes it easy for people to know. They'll capture your attention, and they'll know where to go and what to do. So think about where you've placed it. What does it look like on the page? All right, tip number 3, spark emotion. When you think about how do we respond to things, we're being bombarded with so much information all day long. A picture is worth 1,000 words. So you see this picture here. This is, this girl that she looks happy. She looks like she's in school. Click here to see how her life totally changed. There's something about that, the look, the colors, the picture, and even the words on that button that makes me go, there's some hope potentially here. I'm interested. I want to see how her life totally changed. Now, you're also kind of selling something. You're saying, where if I click here, I sure hope it's going to take me somewhere that's going to actually help me see kind of her story. How did her life change? So if you take me to a giving page, I'm going to be a little frustrated. But if you take me to a great story about this girl and help me understand, why is she in a school uniform? What's a little bit about her story? What happened? Where is she gone? Where is she now? I'm interested. And if that thing sparks what I'm interested in, education, I care about, kids that really are impoverished or have less, they have less opportunity, then I'm going to respond and take the next step with you. So pictures and words that are aligned will capture your attention and help people say, I'm interested. I want to take the next step and respond to your call to action. Here's another great picture, and there's some sentences in here, but you've got this topic that says parents gain jobs and dignity. And then it gives you a little bit of content. So I included this in here to be able to show it's not all just about the button. It can be the picture, the big words at the top. Okay, I'm interested in jobs and dignity. That stirs me as a reader to go, this isn't just about jobs. This isn't just about dignity. It's like, wow, we got a combo deal here. So I read more, through our empowerment programs, we create jobs and a reliable income for parents of our students and other community members who have little to no formal education. We show thousands of people from impoverished backgrounds that they are rich in resources and ability, in determination, ingenuity, and motivation. Okay, now that paragraph got me. That combination with the pictures, and then it says, give to provide a hopeful future. See, the message is all tied together, and something is stirring in me that has to do with an emotional response. Is I care about that. I've got a picture of an area that you're focused on. I understand what you're about. I understand what makes you unique. There's some words that are highlighted on here that are helping me. And I love those highlighted words because those are good for skimmers. And I'm a skimmer. And, there's only so much information I can take in a day. And the number of people today that are skimming rather than reading is going up and up and up. So any help that helps you in your communication move toward, I'm interested in this, and then my click is not just click to learn more. That doesn't quite grab me in the emotional, but click to provide a hopeful future. Okay, now that is connecting what my heart is saying to what the call to action is. And it's a give. This is clearly give to provide a hopeful. So it's not learn more. We know exactly what is wanted here. One other thing to do to connect to emotion is to put your call to action in the perspective of the people you're serving. Okay, we're not talking to the people that are reading this, the people you're serving. So a call to action, imagine a button or a banner that's going by that says, help me break free. So someone that's caught in addiction, help me break free. Send me to camp, join my family, send me to school, keep me warm, adopt me, feed my family, read my story. These are all shifting the perspective. And because that shifts the perspective, what it does in us from an emotional perspective is it sparks our compassion. It says, okay, some of these are very hopeful. Okay, there's hope, or there's empathy. Different emotions get sparked when I shift my perspective from me to somebody else that I could be a part of helping. So if you think about that, when you look at your call to action, are there times when it might be useful to write it from the perspective of the picture that you're looking at, from the people you're serving? That's just another option of how you could do a call to action. Here's another great picture, so it's a child. And you think about the people that are reading, what do they care about? Well, most of us care about kids, because they're dependent and we have a sense of responsibility. We care about families. We care about injustice, the lost, the most vulnerable. We care about good news, restored hope, transformed lives. So think about that as you write a call to action that tries to connect to what your reader is caring about to what you're doing. So in this one, you've got the big letters, give 2 times the malnutrition care. So you know what it's about. It's about kids and getting the right food. And then it says, in that big white box, it is to match. That is a hot link. And it says, help children reclaim their future. Love that. That's vision, that's heart, that's, about the future. It's emotional. I want to help children reclaim their future. So their picture is a link. Their white box actually have 2 different links, the 2-time match. So if you're interested in doubling your money, so that's an interest of the person reading, or if you care about future of children, and then your gift, $50 equals $100, really a great simple way to talk about a match. Your gift, $50 equals $100. That's also a call to action. So interestingly, that I'm not going to read the words in there because on this particular email, that section fell woefully short of being motivational. They actually go into all this detail that is very technical, and I kind of went, it went right over my head. So their words did not fit what my heart was being drawn to, what I cared about. And it made me actually feel a little bit silly, maybe a little bit stupid. So if you include text that really, if I knew a little bit of the story of that child or somebody in that community, to understand what nutrition is being offered to them. And then they have a hot link button. Please don't delay. So there's a little sense of urgency in there, which we'll talk about it in a minute. Make a matched gift now to help provide twice the support to children fighting to thrive in a difficult world. Again, now that breaks the 1 to 6 words, but that's one of those exceptions where if I'm a skimmer, I'm going to not read those words that are in the middle, which is probably good because I'll get lost. But I will go to that hot link and it's all connecting. Give twice, what's in the white box, what's in the blue box, and then the highlighted words. All of them, one call to action. They're not 3 different things you're doing. They're all calling for the matching gift in 4 different ways in the same thing. So when your calls to action are focused on one thing like this, you can help people really capture something that they care about. It connects to the emotions that they really care about. And when someone cares, whether it's doubling their money, not wanting to delay, helping children fighting to thrive, helping children reclaim their future, they actually got it in all sorts of different ways. Fighting to thrive is a little bit negative, claiming their future positive. So they're capturing all kinds of different ways that our brain is saying this is important. So really good example, except for the text content that's in there. Here's another way is to make your call to action from the perspective of the people that want to help, the reader. And here's 2 things that are a little unique. One is identify and connect to their frustrations. Because if I want to be somebody that is is connected to the solution, if homelessness bothers me, then using a call to action that says concerned about hopelessness, you're connecting them with something I'm frustrated about. Sick of high taxes? If you're really doing something on Arizona, tax credit, instead of just give to tax credit, are you sick of high taxes? It's connecting to almost a frustration or a negative emotion. And what that's doing is saying, oh, they understand what things I frustrate, confused about when it helps to give. I mean, I hear that all the time. People are like, I don't know if I'm supposed to give or not give. Does my giving help or hurt? I'm tired of not seeing change. So all of those are trying to connect to what the reader might experience as frustration in their desire to help. So that's something to consider, of a way to make your call to action creative and connected. Another option is to design, how do you connect to people's desire to fix it? So a call to action says be part of the solution. Let's get more done. I want to maximize the results, break the cycle now. All of those things are for people that are really saying, I want to make a solution. I want something that's going to work. Because we use all these things of give now and all this other, but now you're saying we're about the solution. And most people that are givers say, I want to know how this is going to help. What's the impact? So if your call to action connects to that desire to fix, to make something, better, to find a solution, then people are going to say, okay, I'm interested to move in that direction. So think about what it is that those that are reading this want to do. What do they care about? Because even in that example on the last slide, the negative one of children who are struggling to thrive, it kind of says, gosh, that negative perspective, it motivates me and shows me that there maybe is something that somebody relates to me. They understand that frustration. Maybe they get what I care about, and we want to make a positive difference, but there is a lot of negative out there in the world. All right, number 4, and we're not going to be done because we're going to look at even a couple of more examples there, but this is inspire action. So, we've kept it simple. We want to make it so that it draws people's attention, that people notice. That then we are sparking emotion, but now we want to inspire action. And I love the idea of inspiring action, because it's like, what inspires people to take the next step? And that's why it is important to have it clear, creative, not the same old give, donate, all of those typical buttons we see, But here's an example where we're talking about breakthroughs on research. Double your donation for research breakthroughs. So when we talk about breakthroughs, we talk about transformation. People are interested. Like, I want to know, what does that mean? If you're talking about breakthrough, is this a real, is the what you're going to tell me am I going to connect and go, that is going to create breakthroughs? And I get excited about a breakthrough because I'm tired of all of the, same as, and we're not making progress. I want to see breakthrough. I want to see transformation. So you're making a bit of a promise there. You're looking for it. And then as you talk about that opportunity to donate, then it's double my donation. So doubling things is a motivation, is a way people go, I'm inspired by that action. And at the very bottom of this, I kept in that quote, or part of that quote, from actually a cancer survivor. Because if you're looking at this and you've had cancer in your family, someone you loved, you've either lost or they are a survivor, and you're passionate about what they're talking about, you want to hear from a cancer survivor because it's good news. Good news inspires action because it's saying, okay, here's this person, here's what she was a part of that actually kept her from falling into cancer, but being a cancer survivor. So all those things inspire action. In addition to that, here's a few more different things that I've found that I think are really helpful. The discover more, because most of us, especially in North America, we like to discover on our own. So instead of learn more, read more, discover more kind of takes it to that next level. It's like you're in charge here. You can discover more as you read. Help change history. Wow, that's a big statement. I hope that when I click on that, I'm going to find something that tells me you're doing stuff that is actually changing history. And I want to hear more about that. That inspires me and I'm curious, and I hope that you're going to give me what you are promising. Keep the dream alive. So if you're talking about what the dream is, I want to keep that dream alive. Deliver second chances. Any one of us that have experienced the benefit of a second chance, that inspires because we know what that means. We've been there, we've experienced it. We want to give other people a second chance. We've already talked about help children reclaim their future, end hopelessness for one. Now that I love that statement because that's a big statement. End hopelessness. If it ended right there, I kind of would like, yeah, maybe, I doubt it. But end hopelessness for one. Okay, I'm interested. I'm inspired because you've made a big statement and then you've targeted that you've actually made a difference, at least in one life. Grab my spot. So we don't like to miss out. Anyone that's got FOMO, they're going to go, oh, I'm going to grab my spot, or I'm all in. So all of these kinds of statements, the way that they're written is intended to inspire the reader, and they connect to, all the other things we've talked about as well. So calls to action ultimately are something that's closing the deal. It doesn't mean that you're done, but it's saying, all right, here's the information we have to give you. Now your turn to act. So when we talk about closing the deal, in this example, this was an email that went out, had a great subject line. It was heating or eating, a terrible choice. Love that. Most of us are like, oh, I'm curious about that. I'll bite. I'll open that email. And then the text talks about this fall, right now, here's what's happening. And they're talking about the rising costs of heating bills. Now, I'm not sure that this image is all that inspiring, a little bit on the boring side. I'd love to have seen a face or, different people. But the statistics, they say that 50% increase in people's need for help this fall. So because of the rising costs of utilities in general, more and more people are. So they're giving you a statistic. They're telling you why this is urgent right now and that you can do something about this terrible choice. So when you think about this idea of closing the deal, you want to create urgency, use these ideas. And it doesn't mean that it has to be in the button. It could be in your words. Why do they need to act now? Because all of this is happening all the time. Well, it's because this fall it's worse than ever, and 50% more 50% more people are coming to need help. So we need this response now. There's an urgent situation. There's a rapidly increasing need. There's a limited time on us doing, something together now, today, this week. Anytime you're communicating a time frame, you're helping that reader understand what's going on here. Is this something that's urgent? Should I be acting now? Or is this an ongoing problem that's going to be here a long time? And man, I got other things to do this week. So helping close the deal, it's giving that sense of there's a reason to act now, to read further. Using compelling images, which we've talked about a number of times, but that compelling image, not to manipulate, but to connect to what do people care about. And all of this that we're talking about is not about manipulation. It's really honestly bringing things before people and saying, why are you communicating and how can I participate? So if I tell you why there's urgency, if I show you an image of things that you really need to see and understand, if I give you a statistic that helps you see why is this such a burning reality that we need to do something now. We can't wait. This has to be managed now. So giving one of your statistics, alarming, like when, I read that statistic about one call to action, 371%, that's an alarming statistic that says, well, maybe my email shouldn't have 5 different calls to action, because it's telling me that that's important enough. And then having something in there that tells people you can do something about this. You can make a difference. Your part in this enables these things to happen. And that can be done. And, sometimes that's where the face can be seen, or a 2-line testimony, something that helps people recognize that there's a reason why they should take action at this point. So the action, like I said, isn't always about the giving. And, in this particular email, I didn't like the donate now at the top. Number one, it's right at the very beginning, and it's pretty in your face. And I'm like, okay, that's the biggest thing that I noticed in that page. I would have preferred they waited to put that in the bottom, and they use something better and creative, something that says better than donate now. If it connects to the words, it says support your neighbor now. It's my neighbors that are struggling to be able to, they have to make this terrible choice. So the click button on the bottom of that said, support your neighbors facing hunger so they don't have to choose between meals and bills. Support with $25 now. That's a very clear call to action. And you've got the whole line so that you're making sure that your skimmers read the whole thing. But then that button, I would have taken it from that place they've got it, put it down further in the email after they've read or they've seen or they skimmed what you're talking about, so that you're not coming across like give is the only thing you're trying to do. You want to communicate what's going on and then give people your call to action. Don't do your call to action before you've told them what they need to know to be inspired, to have their emotions connected, to see if this really fits their heart. So having this link in the bottom that says support your neighbors facing hunger so they don't have to choose between meals and deals, support with $25 now. Wow, that's something I can do. $25 now, if that's going to make a difference and they are serving people, then I would click the support your neighbor now at the bottom, not at the top of that screen. So closing the deal, placement matters. Standing out matters. It's clear, it's compelling, there's a reason to do it now, and my emotions is connected to what I'm doing. So really specifically, calls to action in email, make sure easy to skim through, see the primary calls to action. Now this call to action, this is a real email. I squished it all together so I could fit it on the page. You could actually read part of it. But this is P82, one of the organizations that we work alongside, doing great work with those that have severe mental illness. Starts out with an image, it was much bigger on the email, but when I came out of the state hospital with a new diagnosis of bipolar and deemed SMI, which is severe mental illness, I was terrified and alone. That's quite a quote. And then SMI is about real people. It's not often that we get to publish personal stories about people we serve. That's why we were super excited with when Leslie agreed to share her story with you. Read Leslie's full story. So this is just one email that's really to connect to people who care about those people who are suffering from severe mental illness, with the goal, underlined, bolded, Leslie shared her story, read her story. And they have a second one, which isn't a bad. I wouldn't say this is bad. That's why I kept it here. But it says, let us know what topics you'd like to cover. We'd like to hear from you. Take this 2-minute survey in red. So you've got really good coloring here. This was black, so it's not white space. In this case, there was a lot of black space in this email with clear white things. The red stood out, so it went along with their branding that was in there. I knew what they wanted. They wanted to read Leslie's story, and they wanted me to take a survey. And at the very bottom, they had follow us. So there actually was 3 calls to action here. And I would probably narrow this down to 2, but that follow us is right at the bottom, almost on every email that they have, and many of us have. But they really had 2 that were here. And I'll tell you, I read Leslie's story. It was impactful. It was moving. So make it so that people can skim, lots of white space, or in this case, black space, and content highlights so that people know what you want them to know. And so there's multiple different ways to respond, in either clicking the sentence, clicking the box, the button, clicking on the words in there. They know where to go because they stand out. And even I would say one thing which we haven't said is, what's the benefit of the call to action? Why would people want to read this story? There was in this thing talked about, as we begin to understand each other's stories, we begin to be able to come together as a community that can support. And I think that is helpful to go, why would I want to read Leslie's story? Especially if it's depressing. I don't need any more bad news. Why would I do it? I want to be in a part of a community. So having those benefits helps us understand, why would I want to do this? And then having something that calls us to that action that we're going to follow up. So online people don't read, they skim. So make sure you have you're helping people who are using email survival skill of skimming to know what you want to say, what your email is about, and what can they do as a result. On website, here's just a few different things. Their navigation bar. That's that top thing that says about us, our programs, get involved. All of those are, in essence, a form of a call to action. So there's something that says get involved. If I want to get involved, I click there. If I want to be inspired, I can click there. Typically, giving buttons are what we say, upper right, big and bright. You should always have your giving button. Now, I won't say always. The majority people look for giving buttons up to the right, big and bright. That's where they first look. If you have yours somewhere else, make sure you have a good reason for it, because when people are familiar and that's what they want to do is give, you don't want to make it hard for them to give. I do love that sometimes that people have this idea of ways to give that they can bid, and I'll show you an example in a minute. Get involved, because when people come to your website, they might want to volunteer, they might want to get involved. I do personally love this be inspired, and we have lots of different ways you can do that on your website, from stories, life change stories, stories of transformation. All of those help share with people your impact by the stories that you make available on your website. And then you can have, when you're telling stories, a way for them to respond, to either volunteer, give, or whatever your options might be as a call to action. And then never, in our context, we don't want to forget to have calls to action for prayer. Prayer is powerful, prayer is important. So having that even on your website where people know that they can participate and make a difference by praying. And then here on this one, they have a play a video. So there's all kinds of calls to action. And typically these are the ones that are short and sweet, so that people know exactly what to do, where to go. Here's a number of other ones that are an example. And I love this Hope Kids one. At their top, there's definitely up to the right, bright. What is the saying? I even said it before. Bright and whatever. But when you hover over it, I know I can't think. When you hover over that button, You're going to see donate now, donate monthly, week of hope, and other ways to give. So they have multiple ways that you can give, even when you hover over their big, bright, up at the top button that helps guide people to know where to go to do what they want to do. But sometimes you're going to say, read about a story, subscribe, join us. Here's what how our programs work. I like the option of give versus donate. It kind of sets us apart as a biblical kingdom mindset. The Bible's all about giving. It's more blessed to give than receive. Doesn't say anything about donating. Donation feels a little transactional. So when you talk about wording, I try to move away from donate as much as possible. But even learn more. These are opportunities or calls to action that are all very helpful and appropriate on your website, because you want your website to be that guide. And every call to action moves people toward what they're interested in and connects them. Call to action by text. Now, I put this example in here because more and more we're texting. People read their texts, and people are using texting in an effective way. And I thought this was an incredible example of a call to action that was personal and followed up. So he says, hey, John, this is Melinda, she said, from Hope Society. We've almost reached our fundraising goal of $5,000 for this Clean Iowa Ballot initiative. Can I send you a link to make a $10 donation? Okay, so in texting, it's all about interaction. Texting is personal. Texting is about short conversations. Get the information out there. What's the goal? What do you want me to do? Can I send you a link? Sure, glad to help. If they said, no, not interested, they don't respond at all, you got your answer. Great, here's your link to the donation. Boom, there's the link. And that link should take you exactly where you want it. So a specific link to a specific page with whatever you're texting is a way to very quickly connect to people, particularly that are relational in your network, to take an action when you really want them. So thinking about calls to action is not just always on email, newsletters, direct mail, websites, but also this growing area in text, social media, all the other things. So wrap up a couple other things in our tips, and then we'll take some questions. I love this idea of using the PS. Whenever you are writing an email or a direct mail, you know what? You can't not read a PS, can you? I mean, here's such a good example. Julie, I want to play Splendor tonight. I mean, I'm bound to win a game against you eventually, right? Brett, PS, I love you forever. When you read and skim, you read the PS. I don't know what it is about that, but we read the PS. So use the PS to remind people of your call to action in a simple, nice, clear way where they can respond in an appropriate way. Always link your pictures, have a hyperlink to pictures. I've said that. Test your call to action. You got to know that you're testing. Does it work? Does the size work? Does the color work? Test it that way, where your A/B tests, where you can look at what do people click on. But not only that, test it to make sure it goes to the place you want it to go. Because like the one I was telling you about today, there's nothing worse than going, I'm interested, I'm inspired, I click, and then I go to a place that I don't know, it doesn't at all connect to it. So be consistent. Make sure that your landing pages are optimized, connected to what it is that you've said, that you use that call to action to go there. If you're saying, I want you to give, this is one of the ones that I used before that was that 2-time match. When you clicked on their call to action, they had a misconnect here because they said $50 equals $100. And then I come here. Fortunately, the words on the left do talk about the 2-time match. Sometimes they don't. And that makes a person confused. And then they typically abandon their response to it if they're confused. But on this side, there's no option for $50. That's a simple fix that you can go in and shift that. But if your call to action is $50 equals 100 and you have no option for 50, I can type it in. Yep. But when the professional who was reviewing this saw this, he said he just was like mortified because it's a simple thing. And for some of us, we're like, it's not that big of a deal. But 80% abandonment on giving pages. Why? Because people get confused. It's not connected. something goes wrong and people tend to quit. 80%, that's huge numbers. If that statistic doesn't rock you, you can have a great call to action, but if your landing page, wherever you take them, doesn't fit the thing you use to call, people get confused. And it actually is one of those ways that you break down relationship, break down trust. So consistency is super important. And so here's what we covered today. Every communication should have a clear call to action. 1 is ideal, 2, 3 at the most, 4 as your final amount. Keep it simple, capture people's attention, spark emotion, inspire action, create urgency, use your PSs, and test your call to action so that wherever you're taking them to fits what you said in the call to action. So that's what we're going to cover today. Now we're going to stop and just say, what are some of your insights, questions, or comments as it relates to what was the most important thing for you today? So I'm going to turn this over to Jonathan. I think there was a number of chats in there. Jonathan, you want to take us down any particular conversation you want to highlight?
Yeah, nothing really specific in the chat, just some likes and just a couple quick questions, but that I was able to answer. But also feel free to unmute yourselves right now and fire away on a couple questions or comments here. I will say this, that maybe this goes without saying, but I want to say it. In order to have calls to action, you actually have to have action opportunities, right? So what are you asking people to do? And you can't just always be asking people to give money, right? We need to raise money, and that's important. But what are there other ways to get? What are there other ways to get involved? Heather brought up one example with being a part of a prayer team or committing to prayer connected with nonprofit work, right? Of course, volunteering, serving, donating maybe gifts in kind, different things like that, donating time. So I really encourage you to think about what are your potential action opportunities for people, and then how do you want to communicate those most effectively, which is everything that Heather talked about today, which was great stuff. So any questions? Feel free to fire away here.
Yeah, I'll just reiterate the question. Said, what was that 80% quote? 80% of people who go to your giving page abandon that intention to give and leave that page without giving. That's an industry-wide statistic. It goes up to down 2% here and there, but a huge number of people leave giving pages without giving, mostly because it's too complex. They don't feel it's secure, or it's a misconnect between what you asked and what they went to the page to do. So there's lots of different reasons, but a call to action that inspires, you want that inspiration to fit whatever's on that landing page. So in order to do that, in a nonprofit, you need to have landing pages that are specific to the calls to actions that you have in terms of giving, or if they take them to a prayer page that's about how you can volunteer, or if you take them to a page that's about read stories, you want to make sure that it's connected to the call that you had. Yes. Keep it simple, silly. I like that. That's a good adjustment, Pat. It's principle.
Well, listen, I know
positive.
we're a little over time, and so we want to let you go, but Heather and I will hang on the line for 4 or 5 more minutes in case you want to stick around and ask a couple specific questions. So thank you so much for joining us today. We'll send out the PowerPoint and the recording. And again, if you'd like to hang on for a few minutes, feel free to do that. But for those that need to leave, thanks for joining us. God bless.